So we're in Perek Gimel. We started reading Halacha Dalet. We're going to read it again. It's a Rambam that it's a good piece of Rambam to Xerox and keep it in your pocket the whole Chodesh Elul, and every so often pull it out of your pocket and read it. The Rambam says, "Afal pisha tkiya shofar b'Rosh Hashanah gzeres hakosav." Even though blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah gzeres hakosav, as we explained yesterday, there's no rhyme or reason for it. The Torah just says on the first day of the 7th month, it's a Yom Teruah. Okay. Why is it a Yom Teruah? What happened on the first day of Tishrei that it's Yom Teruah? So we say the world was created, as we said yesterday, not so pashut. You take a look at the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, it's a machlokas whether the world was created in Tishrei or in Nisan. Famous Rabbeinu Nisa, famous Ran in Rosh Hashanah discusses the kasha in halacha, for whatever the halacha is nageya. It's how we determine the seasons. The Tekufas Hashanah, we paskin the world was created in Nisan. That means that Rosh Hashanah should really be, if we're going to talk about Rosh Hashanah as being the day that Adam Rishon did his sin, and he did his Teshuvah, that would be the first day of Nisan, l'chayra, not the first day of Tishrei. So the Rishonim deal with this kasha. But be that as it may, what exactly is going on that the Torah says, the 7th month, day 1, Yom Teruah. What happened? So Rambam says, Gzeres HaKosav. That's just the way it is. The Rebbeinu Shalom made a Gzera, and it's like a Kapara Aduma. You blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah. But the Rambam says, Remez Yesh Boy, there's a hint. God is telling us, besides the fact that there's a Gzeres HaKosav, you just blow shofar, there's a hint here. Klema, Uru Yeshenim Mishin Asrem, you people who have been walking around the whole year, you think you've been awake, you think you sleep a couple of hours at night, and you're awake during the day. After all, we all go to our jobs, we're all learning, we're all putting on our tefillin, we're all doing all kinds of wonderful things during the day and things at night, and we think that we're spending our days and we're wide awake. We're fast asleep. People are asleep while they're walking. They're not sleepwalking, they're sleep living. And the shofar is this uncomfortable noise. Whether it's the genuche gonach or yule yolo, whatever it is, if it's a da 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 or da da da, it's an alarm clock. Wake up from the sleep. And for you folks who woke up from your sleep, but you're still snoozing and you're still dozing off a bit, now is the time to really get up. Do an investigation in everything that you've done. And do Teshuvah. This is all, when you listen to shofar, we already have a minute where we blow shofar in Elul, but the Rambam is telling us that this is what the shofar is telling you. And we, in Midairaisa, we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and when you hear the shofar, what you should be hearing is, oh, it's an alarm clock. I don't have much time. I need to do something. I've been sleep living my year. I sleep lived. Oh, wake up. And what should I wake up? And start checking out how I live. The chapsu b'maseichem, the chizu b'teshuvah, do teshuvah, the zichu barachem. This is a big chiddush. I always say this is a big chiddush. People do a lot of things in their life. And we do a lot of Torah, we do a lot of mitzvahs. And the one thing that we forget about is God. There are so many things that we do that are God commandments that are done godless. So the Rambam says that a person, chizu b'teshuvah, do teshuvah. People familiar learning with the Rambam, there is svarim written on words. Why did the Rambam add this word? Why did he add this word? Why did he say this? Why did he say this? The words of the Rambam are counted like diamonds. The Rambam here says, chizu b'teshuvah, do teshuvah, v'zichu barachem, and remember who created you. For heaven's sake, if you're doing teshuvah, can you talk about God? Can you talk about God? I say this many times, I'll say it again. I once spoke to a group of Bacharim, and I said, L'mashal, in the Mir Yeshiva, It's a beautiful, wonderful Mokum Torah, unbelievable, probably the biggest Mokum Torah in the world. If we're going to use numbers, right? We're using numbers in the physical world. If you figure maybe there are 2,000 boys learning their first Seder, and first Seder is 4 hours, that's 8,000 hours of Limud HaTorah, one morning Seder in the mirror. That's unbelievable. 2,000 Bachrim, 4 hours morning Seder, 8,000 hours, just one morning Seder. So I asked a group of boys, while you're learning, how many times do you say the Rebbeinu Shalom? How many times do you say HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Of course you don't say that. What do you say? You say, what does the pasuk mean when it says? You're learning a Gemara, you say, what does the pasuk mean? Or you say, what does the Torah mean? And the Torah, of course, means God. But why don't you just talk about God? If you do this, we talked about this in the Rav Kook Ores HaTorah Shir. If you're learning, instead of turning to your Chavrusa and saying always, what does this pasuk mean? What does the Torah mean? How about every so often saying, what does the Rebbeinu Shalom mean with this word? Rebbeinu Shalom. Oh, I just thought about God. That's an unbelievable thing to do in the middle of learning, to think about God, right? That's what you're learning for. You're learning for God. So why don't you mention his name once in a while? So the Rambam says, V'chizru b'teshuvah, do teshuvah, v'zichru barachem. For heaven's sakes, if you're already doing teshuvah, remember God. People can say, I talk too much Lashon Hara. I'm going to stop talking Lashon Hara. Okay, very nice. Why are you going to stop talking Lashon Hara? Because the Rebbeinu Shalom told me that I shouldn't talk Lashon Hara, and I want to do teshuvah so that my life is more consistent with the wishes of God. This is what the Rambam is describing to us here. V'chizru b'teshuvah, v'zichru barachem. Remember who created you. This is key word. V'zichru. Remember who created you. Memory, remember. Because how do you forget God? How do we forget God? We're not talking about Ovdei Avodah Zarah. How do you forget God? So the Rambam continues and says, the Rambam says, do teshuvah, remember your creator. Why wouldn't I remember my creator? Of course I remember my creator. So the Rambam says, Elu hashoichen es ha'emes v'havlei hazman. People end up forgetting the truth because they get so involved and they invest so much of their life and their energies into the silliest time things. People put their time and effort into things that are so temporal, they're so temporary. And in the process, they forget about the eternal truth. Emes is eternal. Emes is Atahu Rishon V'Atahu Achrim Ba'aladech Ein Elokim. The Gemara in Shabbos says that Chaysama Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Emes. God's signet are the letters Aleph, Mem, Taf. Aleph, Mem, Sof. Rashi explains, because it's the first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter of the Aleph Beis. God was, is, and will be. Haya, hay, v'viyeh. It's Emes. There's no change. Ein boy shinui. There's no change. So people, the Rambam is teaching us an incredibly important lesson here. There are two scales. There's one is Emes, and there's one Havlei Zman. One is focusing on the button called Neshama that we just talked about. And that button means I want to concentrate and focus on eternal truth. And one button is called Guf. That's Havlei Zman. And the Neshama wants to turn the Guf into something better than Havlei Zman. We read the Rambam a few days ago that Rav Friedlander brought down in the Das Tevunos. The Rambam writes in his Hakdama to say the Zroyim, Binyan HaGuf, Churban HaSeichel. The Rambam says you should know, the more you build up your guf, the more you invest in guf, the more you destroy your seichel. You cannot have both. You cannot dance at two weddings, the Rambam says. You can either push guf or push neshama. Either guf is dominant or the neshama is dominant. You can't have it both ways. Bin ha-guf, churban ha-seichel. So the Rambam says here, I want you to understand there are two places here. There is hevel hazman, and then there's emes. The two extremes of life is emes and Hevel Zman. The eternity of truth. Truth doesn't change. And the Torah was a God-given truth that's immutable. It doesn't make a difference what will happen in society. It doesn't make a difference what public opinion is. It doesn't make a difference what's popular. We don't really care, because the God-given truth at Har Sinai is eternal emes. The other side of the scale is Havle Zman. It's the foolishness and silliness in these ephemeral, temporary things. And the Rambam says, "V'shoigin kol shenosam behevel v'rik." People spend their whole year on all these silly things. And if you look back at your year, and the Rebbeinu Shalom does that. We don't keep such perfect records, but the Rebbeinu Shalom keeps perfect records. On a Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbeinu Shalom prints out a record, and you can say, Ruvain, I don't know what the calculation is. There's 365 days a year. There's 24 hours a day. How many hours are there in a year? How many minutes are there in a year? How many seconds are there in a year? I don't know. Let's make believe there's 1,000,000 seconds in a year. Rebbeinu Shalom says, Ruvain, you had 1,000,000 seconds this past year. I want to tell you that 626,000 seconds were absolute waste of time. I want you to understand that about 60% of the last year was an absolute waste of time. And I can show you, Ruvain, second by second of the last year, that 60% of your time was a complete waste. You want to spend the next year 60% of your time as a waste in the Hevel Azman, or you want to push the MS button and live the Neshama eternal truth life. And this is what the shofar is waking us up to. It's an alarm clock. Wake up. What do you want to do in the coming year? Do you want to live the MS or the Hevel Azman again? All this stuff is not going to save you. You're not taking it anywhere with you. The nicest, prettiest things, and we talked about this so many times, the Gemara says in Brachas that people have to live with a nice apartment, a nice home, nice furniture, etc. So they have a certain sipuk hanefesh. They can live with a certain simcha. Otherwise, you feel downtrodden. You can't accomplish anything. But how much? And that's where the neshama comes in. The neshama says, enough. This is enough, Olam Hazeh. Go to the next thing. This is enough, Olam Hazeh. Don't spend more time in this. It's Hevel Hazman, and stop it. Go to the eternal emes. Get away from this bad path and clean up the way you think. We spoke about this yesterday. The Rambam here is telling us that not only is Teshuvah on things we do and things that we didn't do that we should do, Teshuvah also means going through our brain and seeing if there's anything in the brain that needs to be kashed. לפיכך צורך כל אדם שירה עצמי כל השנה כולה כי לחצי זכאי וחצי חייב וכן כל עולם חצי זכאי וחצי חייב. חטא חטא אחד הרי חויס עצמי כל העולם כולה כף חייב וגורם להשחסה. עושה מצווה אחת הרי חויס עצמי וכל העולם כולה כף זכוס וגורם להם תשובה והצורך שניהם וצדיק יסוד עולם. As I always say, the Rambam's not making this up. This comes from a Gemara. It's perhaps for the world of psychologists, the world of psychiatrists, this may not work out so perfectly. But be that as it may, we're here in Teiras Emes. The Gemara says that a person should walk around thinking that he's a Beinani. At this moment, right there at the Beinani stage. And imagine to yourself, if in the next second you do an Aveira, you're going to die. Not only that, imagine that the whole world at this second is perfectly balanced. If you do what you're about to do, you're going to tip the scales to make the world into an evil world. And the whole world is going to go through a mabul. The whole world's going to be destroyed because of what you're about to do. Now, people will say, well, that's not a real healthy way to live. I mean, you're creating anxiety, creating stress, you're creating tension. What in the world? The whole world is, if I do what I'm about to do, the whole world's going to be destroyed. If I do what I'm about to do, I'm going to die. That's really, really a dismal way to live. Maybe it is in the world of psychology and psychiatry. I don't know. And then people will say, well, that was good in the time of the Gemara. It's not good today. Of course, we're going to learn probably tomorrow when a person starts talking like that. The Rambam says in Perek Gimel, he starts talking like that. He's either an apikairis or a min. We'll see the different categories. But as soon as a person says, oh, that was true in the time of the Gemara, but look, things have changed, so you're in a conservative or reformed temple. We understand that Metzius change. We understand that the realities in the world change. We understand that we're now in Eretz Yisrael, and Baruch Hashem, we have Eretz Yisrael, and we have all kinds of all new shilas, trumas, ma'aser, shmita, all kinds of things that come up. But we answer those shilas through the nitzchias, the eternal emes of the Torah. That's always what we go to the eternal truth of the Torah. If we don't understand the Gemara, it's okay, you don't understand the Gemara. A lot of things we don't understand. But we can't say that the Gemara spoke to a generation then, but today what the Gemara said is not true. Havla piyam. We don't say that. Chas v'sholom, we say such a thing about Chazal. So the Rambam at the beginning of Perek Gimel said, Perek Gimel halacha beis, Adam sha'avoy noisa meru mal zechiyosav miyad hu meis perishay. The moment a person tips the scale and he has more averis than merits, he's going to die that second. That's the Rambam. We learned the Ravid's comment on the Rambam. We learned the Kesef Mishnah's explanation to the Ravid, answering the Ravid's kash on the Rambam. But that's what the Rambam says. And the Rambam says a whole country that turns evil. With one deed, a whole country can turn evil. The country will be destroyed, like Sodom and Amorah. All of a sudden, the pasuk says, Rabbah. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, I see that there's too many sins here. Done. Sodom and Amorah are gone. And the whole thing is true for the world. The moment it tipped the scales, the Rebbeinu Shalom said, Mabul, everything goes. So the Rambam brings down psukim and proves his point. Of course, we don't know what point something tips. Not only God knows when something actually tips, because one mitzvah can be worth a lot of averos, and one averos can be worth a lot of mitzvahs. And that's the basic idea behind this, but this is a Gemara. The Gemara says a person should understand that every second he should look at himself as a Beinoni. If he does what he's not supposed to do or doesn't do what he should do, he destroyed himself. And he should even look at the whole world. The whole world's perfectly balanced right now. If I do what I'm about to do, I create the whole world being evil. And when that happens, a mabul comes. I'm going to be responsible for having destroyed, I'm going to be responsible for putting that last straw on the camel's back and destroying the whole world. The Rambam says, because of everything that I just explained to you, Nagu kol beis Yisrael lahabais b'tzedakah uv'ma'asim tovim v'lasek b'mitzvos me'Rosh Hashanah v'ad Yom Kippurim yosim mikol Hashanah. Therefore, the minhag became in Klal Yisrael, because Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur is the Aseres Yemei Teshuvah, and we want to do the Teshuvah. We got the wake-up call from the alarm from the shofar, and we're going to do Teshuvah, and we're going to check out our deeds, and we're going to check out to make sure we think like Jews. And we're going to remember our Creator. In order to do this during the Aseres Yemei Teshuvah and help along in this process, the minhag of Klal Yisrael became to give more tzedakah and to do more ma'asim tovim and to do more mitzvahs. Rosh Hashanah v'ad Yom Kippurim yosim mikol Hashanah. Do more of this during these 10 days than the rest of the year. What does that really mean? It means show the Rebbeinu Shalom that you're pushing the Shama button and not Guf button. There's a big machlekes. We all know that the Sfardim start saying Slichas, Rosh Chodesh Elul. The first day Elul, they're already saying Slichas, and they say Slichas throughout. They get up very early in the morning. That's one minhag. We have our minhag where we start saying Slichas this Motzei Shabbos, the week before Rosh Hashanah. And then there's the Rambam's minhag, which is not the minhag that the Sfardim have today. The Teimanim have the Rambam's minhag. The Sfardim have the minhag to say Slichas from the beginning of Elul. The Rambam says, "V'nogu kulam lokum b'layla b'asor yomim elu." The minig to get up early and to say slichas is during the 10 days, not during the month of Elul, and not the week before Rosh Hashanah, but the minig is during Aseres Yimei Teshuvah to get up early, get up at night, U'lespalu b'bate knesiyas b'divrei tachnunim u'b'divrei kivushim ad shiur hayoim, and to be mespalo, to say different tachanunim until daylight. So that's the Rambam for today. Amir Shem, tomorrow we're going to skip halacha Perek Gimel. We're going to skip halacha Hey. It's a very complicated halacha, and the Ravid has a saga. The Ravid disagrees with the Rambam. There's a long Kesef Mishnah, and basically the machlokes, the Rambam and the Ravid comes down to something that you can say numerous shiurim on. What does Olam Haba mean? What is Olam Haba Gan Eden, or is Olam Haba not Gan Eden? There's a machlokes here about what the terms mean. We're going to go B'lineda tomorrow to Halacha Vav, where the Rambam starts telling us about the 24 types of people that don't get to Olam Haba. The 24 Averas that cut a person off Chas v'Shalom from Olam Haba. The reason I'm going to learn this is, Baruch Hashem, none of us are in any of these categories, but these are terms of art. We throw these words around. These are not bikoivas, these are min, these are this, these are that. The Rambam is going to tell us, this is what a not bikoivas is, if he does or says this. This is what a min is, if he does this or he does this. And we're going to see certain surprises about what the halacha says about a not bikoivas min, instead of just throwing around the words as is so want to do. People just say he's not bikoivas, he's a this, he's a that. These are terms of art that come from halacha. All those here that need Yeshua should have Yeshuas. All those here that need Nechamas should have Nechamas. All the Yid need Refuah should have Refuahs. All the Yid need Barachas should have Barachas. Refuahs, Yeshuas, Nechamas, and Barachas can only come from the Rebbeinu Shalom as the Echad, Yachid, and Miyuchad. When we understand this, we live it, and that becomes the way we run our lives, understanding that there's an Echad, Yachid, and Miyuchad. So we bring the Gili Hayichud to ourselves, and through perfecting our imperfect selves, we help perfect the entire imperfect world. We just learned that in the Rambam. A person's responsible for the whole world. We do as much as we can the Gili Hayichud, and then Mashiach Tzidkenu comes today, Mamish, to finish up our work of Gili Hayichud, and to bring the Gili Hayichud to the whole world, to perfect the perfectly imperfect world that we live in. Everybody, please take care of yourselves. Do what you need to do. Try to do what you don't need to do. Take all the necessary precautions to make sure you stay healthy and well. The Nishmat Moed L'Nafshi Seichem is a mitzvah, just like eating matzah on Pesach. And it's just like listening to Shofar and Rosh Hashanah. There's a mitzvah, Nishmat Moed L'Nafshi Seichem. Bez Hashem, we take care of ourselves. We just read last week's Parsha, Kisavai. I didn't mention it last week's Shir on Thursday. The Gemara at the end of Megillah says that Ezra, a Sefer, Ezra, the person who led, Ezra Nehemiah, who led the building of the second Beis HaMikdash, Ezra made a takana that last week's Parsha, Kisavai, should always be read before Rosh Hashanah. But it's not, because we have this week Nitzav and Vayelech. All right, Tosfos asks Akasha in Megillah Daf Lamed Aleph from a base. But the fact of the matter is that we always read Kisavai the next to the last Shabbos of the year. We know from listening to last week the Parshas Kisavai has the Teichacha in it. All Layaleinu, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you. It's a Teichacha, not it's a Yisurim, Puranas. It's a second one. The first Teichacha is in Behukaisai, the second Teichacha is Kisavai. And Ezra made a rule. Kisavai must be read before Rosh Hashanah because Tich Lashana V'Kil Leiseo, the Gemara says. Ezra said, I want the year to end and all the bad things of the year should end through Kisavai. Kisavai, we read about all the Yisurin. The Yisurin are over when you read Kisavai. It's the end of a year. We're moving into Tafshin Pei Aleph, Shabo Leinu L'Taiva. So we already read Kisavai last Shabbos, Tich Lashana V'Kil Leiseo, wipe out all the klalas and all the Yisurim that we face during Tafshin Pei. We prepare ourselves through the Tekiah Shofar to remind ourselves to start pushing the Shama buttons and to get the finger off the Guf button, to live the eternity and not the falsity of the Hevel Hazman. And we're going to be Zeichet, Tachel Shanu B'Chaiseh, a new blessed year with all kinds of brachas. And the bracha of Mashiach Tzidkein. We have to be alive to do it, and to be alive to do it, we need to be healthy to do it. Everybody take care of your health. Take care of your health. Take care of your health. It's a mitzvah, and not only is it a mitzvah, but if you're really excited that you want to greet Mashiach, you want to live to see it, you want to dance with him, so you got to make sure you're healthy and well. Everybody have a wonderful day, sei gesund, and Yetz Hashem will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m.